welcome to The Sisters Sit Down. My name is Kasey.
Hey, my name is Kameron.
And today we're just sitting down with one another for our first episode.
Woo!
Are you nervous?
I'm very nervous.
Oh my God, I'm so nervous too. On this episode, we're going to talk about
My phone's not on.
growing up. Is mine? It was not. Rookie. Growing up in ministry and being a pastor's kid and what that looked like then and how it has affected us as adults and like what we went through our teenage years. We had very different teenage experiences.
Oh my gosh.
Polar opposite.
Yeah.
Thank
you for that.
Yeah. You learned a lot from watching me grow up.
Trauma.
Yeah. What aspect do we want to talk about right now? We may need to edit this part out.
I mean, I think for one, it's just how it's like it's one thing to say that you grew up going to church. It's another thing to say that you grew up basically in the church,
living in the church,
where everything is just centered around that completely. And I mean, it's not really something I think you can get away from being a pastor family. I mean, that's who you are, especially in smaller churches.
It's your complete identity.
I imagine it must be completely different in bigger churches, like Pine Lake. Like I think about how Chip takes July off apparently like every year. He takes a whole month off.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
And I mean that's really cool. Like he has some type of boundary there.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so different when it comes to small churches. It's so intimate. I don't know what I just said. It's so intimate, and then you have a lot of times it's just families, and so nobody's really afraid to kind of speak their mind, and then they like to imagine that you are a part of their family, so they treat you as such. I know you don't always treat your family always 100% nice,
no,
but it's just, to put it in a nutshell, there's a lot of drama. There's no, I don't feel like going to church, so I'm not going to go. And it's become, like you said, it becomes your whole identity.
It becomes your whole identity. And I think something that is noteworthy is our parents were very, very young when Dad surrendered to ministry. And we love our parents. We have a great relationship with our parents. They're literally upstairs right now with our baby. And
Our baby.
My baby, not our baby. And like nothing that we say is in to bash them or to shame them in any way. They were so young. They were 23 when they had me. And like within that year, Dad surrendered to ministry. And so I think back to when I was...
sure?
He surrendered to youth ministry.
Oh, okay.
And then he eventually surrendered to pastoral ministry.
Yeah.
So I think back to when we were 23. I mean, and you're only 26. So it's like
10 days away.
Well, then you're 25.
Yeah, mid-20s.
So that's 2 years. Like, could you imagine being a pastoral wife at this age? Like, it would be insane. Not. Or being a pastor or any type of pastoral position or ministry position. And I think that had a lot to do with how we were raised, is because they were so young and they took a lot of influence and advice from other people. Because to back up a little bit, to give some background for those of you who don't know, our home church, Delta, was started and formed on our great-grandparents' front porch. Yeah. Like, that is where Delta was born. Yeah. And when they decided to put it into, like, a brick-and-mortar church, our family made up a huge portion of the congregation. Like, our family was huge. It was very tight-knit. And everyone in our family was involved in ministry in some way. I'm pretty sure Pappy was a deacon. Yeah. Papa was a deacon. All of our great aunts and uncles were involved in the music. Like Aunt Jan sang. Aunt Peggy played the piano. Aunt Lori plays the piano. Aunt Teresa still teaches Sunday school, I think, at Delta. So our entire family was just church, and it was 24/7. Our great-grandparents, Pappy and Clemaw, were like fundamental Southern Baptist Christian. It was very traditional. It had a lot of deep roots that probably do not align with our faith walk today, to be completely honest. And I mean, when you're 23, 24 and you've surrendered to ministry and you're entire, like, I know that they took a lot of influence from those very traditional values. And the fact that, I mean, Dad's entire life was church before Mom came along. And of course, then Mom basically was adopted into Dad's family.
Yeah.
And so she pretty much grew up kind of that same way as a teenager.
Yeah.
So I imagine, I mean, they had zero life experience on their own with church in regards to how they raised us. And they were experiencing life for the first time too. That's what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Was there was a point in time, and I know in my life and probably in your life, where we were angry. I was angry at my parents with the way that they raised us.
Yeah.
And just kind of disappointed with how, especially when it came to religion and faith and the church and our relationship with them, because I don't feel like I had a super great relationship with them, especially when I was in high school. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was bad. And
I saw a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode. But as an adult now, I mean, I'm 29. I'm about to be 30 this year. I have a child. And I realize, wow, they're just doing life for the first time on their own. And I'm not angry at them anymore, and I'm not disappointed anymore. I'm just, it kind of sucks for them too. Yeah. Because they probably look back on that time and they're like, wow, we missed out on a lot of family time. Yeah. Or I wish we could have worshiped together as a family in the congregation at least a couple Sundays, you know?
But yeah, I think, once you become an adult, obviously you being a parent, you realize how, like you said, like, we all are doing life for the first time. And it just gives you this understanding of, like, just because they're older now doesn't mean back then they knew the things that we know. We only know the things that we know now because we've seen what they've gone through. We've gotten to learn and observe and be like, hey, I don't want to do this, or oh, I wish, they wouldn't have done this, blah, 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 blah. But, you can't go back and you can't change anything. But it does give you a different perspective from, instead of being like, like a selfish kid, like, oh, why do I have to go to church every Sunday, blah, blah, blah. You look at it as, I mean, they were doing what they felt was right.
Well, like, what were they going to do with us? Leave us at home? Like, that doesn't look good for the pastor's family to just be the wife and the husband there, and the kids are at home. Like, that would have been a mess in and of itself. Also,
them being so young, a lot of times older people will take advantage of that, and I think
to try to mold them into.
Well, I think mold them into
what they wanted
was just like having all the responsibilities of the church onto the pastor's family. That was one thing that would always get on my nerves, was us as a family, like, always having to be responsible for everything, especially Mom. Like, Mom, I mean, of course, Dad, he was a pastor, but, Mom was like, oh, I'll be the this, I'll be the that.
I'll do the VBS, I'll do the Sunday school, I'll do this workshop, I'll do
summer camp.
Bible drill.
Yeah, Bible drill. I mean, just shoebox. I mean, all just the different things, to the point where, us being adults now, it's like, I don't want to be involved in the church at all.
Exactly.
That's why I low-key like going to Pine Lake, because it's so big.
You're just a face in the crowd. Nobody knows you. Nobody has any expectations of you.
And you can leave. And it's like, of course you can be in as involved as you want to, but you don't have to. And there's just that freedom of choice that is available to us now that I really do enjoy.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I just want to be able to go and worship and be present and then leave and not have to worry about all the drama and everything. But I think that's just a thing in smaller churches. Like, Lord have mercy, it's just
the drama
from all the different churches that we've been through.
Yeah,
there has just been so much drama.
Well, and that's what's so bad about being involved so heavily as a pastor's family, is you see the underbelly.
You really do.
You know so many things about all the members of your church that you're like, we really got to stop talking to each other. Like, we need to stop talking to each other altogether. No one needs to be friends. Come, sit, worship, leave. Because I feel like, and I will be completely honest, like, Fox is being dedicated tomorrow, and I don't think Jordan and I have been to church in over a year and a half. Pregnancy was really hard on me. Yeah. And on top of that, like, we're over here in Brandon. We have a church in our neighborhood, but it's like, we're running and going all over the place. Getting up on Sunday is so hard. COVID really kicked our butts because we were so used to watching the sermons at home for so long. Yeah. And now having to get up and go to church, and now having a 4-month-old, it's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Like, we're about to get into RSV season. I don't want to go to church. Like, this is incredibly hard. And I've almost needed this very long reprieve, I guess you could say, from church. No, because for our entire lives, it was mandatory. There was no option. It was like every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night. On the weekends, we had different sort of things that we had to do, like spaghetti luncheon, like the stuff at the firehouse and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's such a huge adjustment to go from being in that environment to going to college and moving off. Like, I moved off to Oxford. And I was like, one of the biggest things that I was excited about going to Oxford was I don't have to go to church anymore. Yeah. I don't have to get up on Sunday morning, and I don't have to go to church. I don't have to go that night. I don't have to go Wednesday. This is so nice. And then, you know, I graduated and I got my job and we moved into our townhouse, and like that mandatory
aspect of
it was gone, and it was so enjoyable because Sunday mornings, no shade to mom and dad, but Sunday mornings,
they were horrible.
Were never enjoyable. It was the most stressful day of the week for us.
It was so chaotic.
Oh, it was so stressful. Everyone was angry at each other. Everyone was tense. Everyone was stressed out. And for 10 years of that, we lived across the street from the church.
I know.
So I look back and I'm like, what was everybody's problem? Why were we at each other's throat?
He would go without us, you know.
I know. And then we're at home, you, me, and mom going at each other because Dad's already left. We're going to be late.
Like, how are we late when we live across the street?
Yeah, how are we late? We live across the street. It was such an ordeal. Like, me and Cameron were probably at each other's throats 24/7 because of that. It was oh God, it was so stressful. And when you go from that environment to your own environment where you're in charge, you're like, oh, I'm never going to church again. I am never going to church again. I don't want my life to be like this. And now that Fox is here, I'm like, okay, how do we go to church? And how do our Sundays become our favorite day of the week and not the day of the week where I'm like, I don't want to have the Sunday scaries again. I'm not a teacher anymore. I don't live at home with my parents anymore. I don't want the Sunday scaries to kick back in, and I don't want Fox to feel that way either. I don't want to raise him with the relationship with religion and faith that I have because it's been a roller coaster. Yeah. And I just want his life to be so much smoother in that area than mine was. And I don't know how to navigate that.
I think
I have some time, though. He's only 4 months old.
Yeah. I think for us, like, obviously I really enjoy just not going for a long time. We've recently really gotten back into things.
I know. It makes me feel really guilty because you go to church almost like every Sunday. And I'm like,
oh, we miss here and there, though, for sure. And that was kind of one thing I always would tell myself is like, if I need to miss for a certain reason, you know,
okay.
Like it's okay. I'm not gonna go
You're
to
not gonna go to hell
if I miss a Sunday. But I will say, the more I go and the more I enjoy it, the more I want to go. Yeah. And I have accepted, like, if I'm late going to church, I'm late. Like, I'm not gonna stress about it. But I try to make sure that we like get up on time. And a lot of times I'm like, I let like Angel like take care of the dogs and like get that stuff together. That way I can have plenty of time to get ready. And of course she takes like 5 minutes to get ready. But I think it's all in the spirit of why you are going. If you are going because you feel like you just have to go, you're going to be stressed and you're not going to enjoy it. But for me, it's been more so lately
behind it.
Listening, actually really enjoying the sermon and enjoying the worship and, you know, being curious about what does God have for me today to hear and to know. And it's really beneficial when it comes to, you know, the struggles with like mental health and everything. Anything related to like depression and anxiety, you know, like there's always that comfort when you do go. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's really easy to just
fall out of it,
sleep and stay in bed. And Sundays, that's the day that the bed is the most comfiest. I swear it is. But I like that they have the 3 different times. They have like an 8, a 9:30, and an 11, I think. So it's like you don't have to get up super early. And if you
got 3 chances.
You got 3 chances to go. But I really enjoy Chip. It really reminds me of Dad. So I really like going. But I mean, there was definitely a really long time where I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to see people. I just don't want to do that. But just really, like, as of late, I would say like the past few months we've really enjoyed going. But you just have to figure it out for yourself. I mean, that sounds kind of blunt, but like y'all just have to figure out whatever type of system works best for y'all. But I will say there are lots of little bitty babies there, and they have all kinds of different things. But because it's so big in there, like, some people will just kind of stand in the alleyways with their kids. Yeah, I see a lot of dads taking their kids down and holding them and everything. But I mean, I wouldn't say feel guilty, but because you can always work on your relationship outside of church. And that's one thing. Just because you go to church
don't mean you're going to church.
You could just be present.
Just because you're there don't mean you're there.
Like, you go to school, but did you really learn? Like, you were present in class, but did you learn anything? You can go to church, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily the best person in the entire world. And that's a whole nother episode. And it's not to sway people from wanting to go to church. Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Because you should want the fellowship. It's just... Me personally, I don't want the fellowship.
Well, you have to remember this too. It's like you can be as involved or not involved in church as you want. And another thing is, like, yes, there are sometimes not so nice people in church, but there are not so nice people everywhere.
That's true.
And that's kind of one of the things I have to remember is it's like, is anybody really out in this world claiming that they're this perfect person? I think you have to be careful though with churches. I think but in any situation you have to be careful. But it just seems so much worse because you're in church where everybody's supposed to be nice and supposed to be this way. But I genuinely think those people, I think they have a larger issue at hand. I mean, I think some of the people that we have dealt with, I don't even know how to go into all of that.
I guess. So we're going to talk about, for the next little while on this episode, the church that hurt us the most. And I think it was the most influential because I was in 3rd grade when we started there. Yeah. You were in, like, what, kindergarten then?
Yeah.
Because we're about 4 years apart. And we grew up at this church. Like, sure. I was a junior, about to be a senior, when we were no longer with this church. It was the most influential part of our life growing up.
I think it was the one church I think that Mom and Dad gave their absolute
the most to.
Like, anything and everything they could give, they did.
And I'm not claiming to know all the ins and outs of the situation that led us to no longer be at this church, but I know enough about the situation where I'm pissed. I was pissed then. I've been pissed for years. There's a lot of people I still have not forgiven.
I think you need to do some therapy.
I went to therapy for 1.5 years, and all it did was make me angrier. I don't know what that says about me.
I think you need another 1.5 years to wrap things up on it.
It just rehashed everything, and I was like, you know what? I am still mad about this.
I am still mad.
It brought everything back up to the surface. So I don't know if therapy works for everybody, but there's a lot, because I have not been apologized to. And that is my problem.
That's never going to happen.
That's never going to happen. There are other people in my life currently that want to apologize to me for things. That's a whole nother episode.
Ooh, stop it.
Yeah. But it was hard because, like you said earlier, how old are you in 3rd grade? Like 8?
I have no idea.
From like 8 to 17, these people were like, we're your family and we love you and you're ours and you're like our daughter, you're like our granddaughters, blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, hey, your dad didn't do what we wanted him to do, so you're homeless. Bye. Yeah. And you've lost part of your income. Bye.
Sometimes
out of the blue,
completely just like forget. And I think I've like tucked
how crappy people were to us, our family.
Because it's just like you expect so much more.
You do.
Out of these people who are like, oh, we love you. You are our family. And it's like, my family would never treat me like this, though. Like, I don't understand. And once again, this is not in an effort to be like, oh, don't go to church because church people are horrible. Yeah. But if
everybody's horrible, to be honest.
Yeah. Church people who are listening to this, hopefully one day, be nice, please.
Yeah.
But just understanding that, like, as a pastor family, like, you go through so much that a lot of people will never know and understand, and it impacts you in such a large way, because if a dog bites you one time, you will never forget that, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, a dog bit me one time and I'm forever afraid of dogs. So it's like, if somebody has hurt you in this hardcore of a way, like, you never forget that.
Well, I see these people on Facebook from time to time, their posts, and I'm just like, I don't like you.
It just
I want to message them and be like, hey, you were a butthole. You remember when you were a butthole?
Well, I think more so it's not even necessarily the one who, did the stabby. It was the ones who let it happen.
That's what makes me mad. Because,
like the disappointment that you said.
Because Christians, or I would say like older Christians, are always like, you have to stand up for your faith. Like, you can't let society put you down. And then they're like, hey, we're kicking your pastor's family out because he didn't do what we wanted to do. And they're like, oh, okay. Hands off.
I know.
They're not like, hey, no, we're not going to do that. And I think small church politics is what really pisses me off. Because it's like, let's put it to a vote. Everyone vote. Like, no. If this is wrong, then we all need to say, we're not going to do this. I don't care how many hands go up. I don't care how many hands are down.
Yeah.
This is wrong. All of you suck. Get it together. Like, I swear, if I was the woman I am now, back then, we definitely would have gotten kicked out of the church. we would have still been gone. We would have still gotten kicked out. But I would have made one hell of an exit. I really, really would have. And I would have told some people about themselves, because we were mistreated.
Oh, for sure.
As a family, we were 100% mistreated, and it sucked. And what really sucked, if you are a pastoral family and you're listening to this, probably not. Probably nobody's listening to this, just me and Cameron. But if someone shares this with someone and you're a pastoral family, please do not live in the parsonage.
Oh, yeah,
Please, for the love of God, do not put your family in a position to live in the church's home that they provide for their pastor's family. Because at the end of the day,
that's not your house.
That is not your home. It is not your house. And I'm sorry, but the deacons or the elders, whoever you call them in your church, they are the ones who decide if you get to stay or leave.
Yeah.
We know that it is ultimately, God's influence on the church that should make decisions and help form the actions of the church, but people are sinners. They are sinful. They do not always listen to God.
No,
and that is how
true.
pastors' families end up homeless, living with family members, and having their family completely fall apart over the course of a year.
Yeah.
And please do not trust your church with the roof that goes over your head, because I understand, and I already know someone's going to be like, well, that's putting your faith in God. You're parents, especially if you have children. Mm-hmm. You are charged with your child's safety and their security. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you this right now, there is nothing more unstable than a group of old men being in charge of if you get to have a roof over your head or not. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
Jordan and I have actually been talking about possibly moving and selling our home and downsizing and just trying to have... Mm-hmm. I'm not working anymore. I've stepped back from the classroom. We're down to one income. And we're always heeing and hawing with, do we sell our house? Do we move to Florida? Do we buy a trailer and put it on mom and dad's land? Like, blah, blah, blah. And the other night, it's this huge gray area, because we can't do that unless Jordan quits his job. And I was like, I can't live in this gray area anymore. I need to know if this is going to be our home. And then it hit me that I didn't want to sell our house.
Okay.
I was like, I don't have to sell our house. Interesting. We can live here. Yeah. We can financially make this happen. I was like, I want a home. Yeah. Because, we had an apartment at Oxford. We had a townhouse that we rented. We had a house that we rented. And now this is our first home that we have purchased together that is ours. Yeah. As long as we pay our taxes to the United States government. And I was like, I want this to be where Fox opens Christmas presents. And, where our kids learn to walk and learn to swim. I was like, we have a baby, a little boy. He's going to love this pool when he gets a little bit older. Yeah. And it really hit me that, we did not have a physical home growing up. The last time we had a physical home that was truly ours was when we lived behind Grandma Linda in the trailer. And we were babies then.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't in school. You were in diapers. Like, and that is truly the last time that I felt like we were this perfect family unit. Because by the time we moved into the house on Hildebrand, I was a senior.
No, that's very true.
I was getting ready to ship off to college, and life is never the same once you move off to college and live in a dorm, because everything after that,
neither of us ever really moved back home.
Neither one of us ever. I was back home for a couple months after I graduated from Oxford and started teaching.
Yeah.
But then we got engaged and we moved into our townhouse, and it was over with from there.
Yeah.
So the last time we were really in a stable, and when I say stable, I mean like physical structure that is ours, that we never had to worry about losing, was when we lived in the single wide.
We were in a good building.
Yeah, we were safe.
We was on the street.
We was in a cardboard box under the bridge. We could have woken up any morning and the church could have been like, "Hey, you're gone. You need to find a new place to live."
Yeah.
And I don't know when Mom started going back to school and working and like having a stable income, because she was at home with us for so long, which was so selfless and wonderful. Yeah. But Dad was a teacher and a pastor. Mm-hmm. And if you get kicked out, you're not the pastor anymore. So you just have a teacher's salary to support a family of 4. Yeah. And that was hard back then.
What happened, though.
Is impossible now, but it was definitely hard back then.
Yeah.
And it made me realize, I don't want to sell this house. I just want to live here. And then when we decide, and it's easy to sell our house and move, then we'll do that. Yeah. But I don't want to do this and make it feel chaotic, because I think I have some issues with moving and like selling our home and moving Fox around because of how we were brought up.
Yeah.
For real.
I don't blame you on that at all. That's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
When you have so much conditional aspects of your life and where you're living and everything, of course, as an adult, like what we talked about earlier, what you lack in your childhood, you crave to replicate or to have in your adulthood, throughout your parenthood or whatever. So yeah,
home stability is definitely something I want to heal from and give Fox that 110%. And any other babies that we have, I want them to know, hey, we're always gonna have a roof over our head, and whether we do or whether we don't is up to us, not someone else. I don't have to worry about someone taking our home away randomly because they don't agree with something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that messed me up for a long time, and still now.
Especially when you're young, and you trust people so much. And I think just like every church after that, for us, there was just like less and less of that trust there, which is so sad to think about, but it's just the reality of it. But I think it also, it's like you have to, it's like the 5 stages of grief. Like you have to go through each one.
Yeah.
Any type of trauma, any type of bad situation that you've gone through, you have to go through all the steps, or you will forever just be so angry. And I don't know if maybe you're stuck in
I think I'm still angry. Like when let's just be really vulnerable here, as if we haven't already. But when I started therapy, she had me sit down and like map out where I think all of my issues came from. And it all went back to the ministry.
Yeah.
Because, my relationship with our family really fell apart when we moved in with our grandmother. And Mom and Dad were living in a camper in the backyard.
Yeah.
And me and you were living inside with our grandmother because I did not have a good relationship with her at that time.
Yeah.
And I was I was furious with the church at that point. And I was already a little rebellious in high school. But I went full blown. I don't give a rat's behind about anything. I pretty much lived at my best friend's house from Friday to Sundays.
For sure.
And what's crazy is that I was raised in such a strict, no means no, I said so because I said so household. And Jordan was not raised that way. And we both ended up at the same parties every weekend. I was going to get there. And I was drunk every opportunity I could get because I was so angry. And I was like, we did all this for this church. And then they were like, bye. Like, it just felt like I was being I'm just going to get real personal. It felt like I was being thrown away because I grew up with these people. These people were like my church aunts and my church uncles. And I had such a deep relationship with these older men and women as like protection figures and like maternal figures in my life. And then they were just stripped away so fast. And
that's to put a pin in that. And that's one thing you don't think about as a pastor's family when you leave a church. Like, you're leaving those people behind.
I mean,
because you will not interact with them anymore.
You will not.
It's like,
especially if you're leaving on a negative way, in a negative. What am I trying to say? On a bad note.
Leave it on a bad note. I mean, it's like these people who you called your family, and now you're just supposed to leave them and like almost never talk to them again.
Yeah,
that's a hard thing to deal with. That's a loss. I mean, it's a loss in a sense, whether it's a happy or a sad one. Like, it still is a loss of some sort. So it's understandable to be that angry and upset.
And especially at that age, it's so traumatic. Like, I mean, you think about how many church camps we went to with these people.
Yeah.
I mean, over the span of that. I mean, you really grew up there because you were in kindergarten when we started there.
Yeah.
And you were in high school when we left. So that's like all of your formative years. I mean, granted, I was only in the 3rd grade. Yeah. But I mean, still. And I mean, all of our friendships were based through our church.
Yeah.
And I mean, my best friend, was I met through church there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can't go to your best friend's house when
there's a little turmoil.
There's turmoil within the parent situation because of the situation. Yeah. And it was so heartbreaking. And where was I going with this? Postpartum brain has got me. Anyway, it's very traumatic at that age.
322.
when you're ripped away
at
that
college,
way.
you are at the same parties. That's what you were saying.
Oh, yeah. And I was rebelling because I felt like I lost everything. I was like, why would I listen to you? Why would I not drink? Why would I not go out and party? Because you obviously don't love me. Because you just threw me away. Yeah. Like, you don't actually care about my family because now we're actually homeless. We don't have a home.
Yeah.
My parents are living in the backyard in a borrowed camper. I'm about to fist fight my grandmother inside. My sister is living in the sunroom. My grandma's hellhound is constantly barking and biting at me. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I came home drunk to grandma's house so many times. I'm pretty sure Dad like met me in the front yard multiple times, and he was just like, "Oh well, I don't know how to deal with it."
Well,
I got enough problems on my own.
You couldn't be dealt with though. Like, not to say anything negative about you, but like, you were so angry. You were so set on your path.
Mm-hmm. I think I was set to just do the absolute opposite of everything that the church had taught us to be, because I felt like it was all a lie and a sham at that point.
Yeah.
I was like, if I can be thrown away this easily, then really none of this is probably real or matters. Yeah. So I'm just going to do what I want. I'm going to do what makes me happy. Mm-hmm. And being at my friend's house from Friday to Sunday and being drunk pretty much the whole time, that's what I'm going to do because that makes me happy. And
I don't think it really made you happy in those moments. I think it
made me not feel a lot of things. Mm-hmm. It shifted a big focus onto something else. And
oh, for sure.
But I mean, it just goes to show you that I've learned about myself as I'm an adult is that I'm not a because I said so type of person. Like, I'm not going to accept that as an answer. And I feel like the generation that we grew up in and the adults that we interacted with, mm-hmm. they are very much up because I said so. Like, you can't really question anything. Yeah. And if you do question something, it's seen as disrespectful. It's not seen as curiosity or like just not understanding. And I'm sorry, but that's just how my brain is. I'm not doing it to be a brat, but I need to know.
Yeah.
Why do I not need to be drinking? Why do I need to not be having sex? And I really think mm-hmm. that if someone had been honest with me and said, this is why you don't need to be having sex, instead of, your body is for your future husband. Well, I'm 15 and I'm going to marry that boy. That's my man. That's my husband. That doesn't work out very well, friends.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like generation to generation.
That dishonesty.
They are the way they are as adults because of the way they were raised as kids.
Were.
Well, yeah, and so it's like they just learned what they were taught. I mean, mm-hmm. You can only do with the information that you've been given.
Yeah.
And so, like we talked about, there's some things, generational traumas that you have to heal from, and mm-hmm. things that you have to learn from. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's just what they learned, and we see what they went through, and we learn from that as well. But there's such a different attitude towards, like, so, like, going back to just going to church itself. Like, when we were little, we had to go. There was no question. And yes, we were told why we were going, but none of that made sense to me until becoming an adult. And I was like, oh, we go to church because we really do want to hear what he has to say. And there is something that I can hear when I go. Like, instead of just like, oh, just listening and processing the sermon, it's like, oh, I actually hear something that applies to my life. Yeah. When you come with a heart of actually wanting to hear. And just as a kid, you just don't get that. You don't get it.
I also think as a kid, when your entire life revolves around something else that you don't 100% understand, like religion, it's such a chore. It turns it into this chore that you have to do because, number one, you don't understand it. You don't get it. Yeah. And then you're having to do it because someone's like, we have to. We are the pastor's family. We have to. Yeah. And it's like, but I don't want to. Yeah. And I feel like if there had been more space and a better boundary between our family and our family time. Yeah. Because I feel like a lot of our family time was just us doing church things. Yeah. And if there had been a little bit more space between the two, we probably wouldn't have had as big of an issue going to church. Right. Like as we did inside, like, internally. Yeah. But because it was a constant have to, it felt like a chore. And it was something we wanted to fight against because it's like, well, you're making me.
Yeah. And of course, as a kid, you're selfish. Nobody wants to do what they're told. I mean, even as an adult, you don't want to do as you're told. Yeah. But I think mom and dad got better with that over the years because they started getting tired.
Yeah, they did.
They were tired of it.
We're actually going to talk with mom in the next episode that we film about how their ministry changed. And because she's told me, because they were so young, they were influenced to run their ministry a certain way and to, raise us a certain way. Yeah. And as they got older and they had more life experience and they met more pastoral families, they probably got to see a lot of different dynamics and be like, oh, maybe we need to tweak and adjust a few things. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning of this, we are not hating on our family or our parents. We love our parents. We are hating on some churches. I want that to be very clear. That is happening. Yeah. Maybe I'll get the guts one day to just like full blown out that situation. I don't know, maybe not.
That's a little much for the very first episode.
Oh, dial it back. But yeah, we're gonna talk about that in the next episode. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here.
I was gonna say that literally sounds like a really good point.
Yeah. Too. And we will see you guys back when we sit down with our mom.
Yeah, which is technically gonna be in just a couple minutes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.